Good morning, children. This is the explanation of the story of an hour by Kate Chopin. The protagonist of the story is Mrs. Mallard, who is a heart patient. She has a weak heart. And knowing that Mrs. Mallard was afflicted, suffering with a heart disease, great care was taken to tell her as softly as possible that her husband had died. It was her sister Josephine who broke the news about her husband's death, and she did not tell it very fast. She told her sister in broken sentences. Veiled means hidden hints that revealed, opened in half hidden conditions that Mr. Mallard was no more. Her husband's friend, Richards, was there at that moment. It was Richard who had been to the newspaper office when intelligence of the railroad disaster was received. When the news of this railroad accident was received at the newspaper office, and it was written that Brentley Mallard, the husband of Mrs. Mallard, his name was the first one in the list of the killed people. Richard had only taken the time to confirm himself of the truth by receiving a second telegram, and then he had quickened to forestall, to stop any less careful person, any less emotional friend who could bring that news to Mrs. Mallard. Means he had quickly moved on to Mrs. Mallard's house so that somebody else does not give her the news fast. She may not be able to survive the shock as she is a heart patient. She did not hear the story as many women have heard the same, with a paralyzed, surprised inability to accept its truth. Means Mrs. Mallard did not hear about her husband's death like any other woman. She immediately started crying with sudden, wild abandonment. Abandonment means she left herself loose. She just collapsed in her sister's arms. And when the storm of grief, when the instant sorrow had spent, when that great blow had passed, she moved to her room upstairs, and she did not allow anyone to follow her. Now there stood, facing the open window, a comfortable, roomy armchair. There was a comfortable room upstairs with an open window and an armchair. She sat down, as if she was physically exhausted, tired. That haunted her body, and that tiredness was troubling her. And this tiredness was also reaching her soul. It was troubling her physically and mentally. She could see in the open square through the window before her house. What could she see? The top of trees. They were all marked. A quiver means marked with the new spring life. They had all new blossoming leaves. It was springtime. Just see the contrast in the story. Her husband has died, and she is visualizing life. New leaves on trees. The delicious breath of rain was there in the air, and she could hear the lyrics of a song coming from a far distance which someone was singing. She could faintly hear the voice of the song, and numerous sparrows were twittering, making noise in the eaves. Eaves are the projected edges of balconies or windows where birds usually sit. And there were patches of the blue sky. She could also see the sky, the limitless sky, showing here and there through the crowds that had met and piled one above the other in the west, facing her window. The clouds were all together and they could be seen through her window. Mrs. Mallard sat with her head thrown back upon the cushion of the chair. She was motionless, without movement. Only sometimes, when the thought of her husband came to her, she sobbed. She gave out a silent cry, and that sob shook her. Just as a small child, when he gets a beating or scolding, he keeps on crying and then goes off to sleep and then sobs in his dreams. The description of Mrs. Mallard: she is young, with a beautiful, calm face, and the lines on her face spoke about repression. Very, very important. Repression means she was subdued, not allowed to do what she wanted. And even strength. The face had both the lines, symptoms of repression and strength, feminism. But after her husband's death, there was a dull stare in her eyes. She looked continuously over those patches in the sky. It was not a look of reflection, but that look indicated, showed that she had some intelligent thought lie in her mind. There was something which was pricking her, and she was waiting for it. The wait for that something was fearful. What was it? She herself did not know. Because that feeling was hidden, subtle, and elusive, it was difficult to define. But she felt the feeling as it was slowly creeping out of the sky. It was coming from somewhere high, reaching her through the sounds and the scents, the sounds of the trees, the rain, the smell of the rain, the twittering of the birds, and the blue color of the sky. Now her bosom, her heart, rose and fell excitedly. Tumultuously means excitedly. And she started to recognize that the feeling that was approaching to possess her, to have its effect on her, and she was trying hard to beat back that feeling with her whole desire, as powerless as her two white slender hands would have been, but she was unable to push back that feeling. She wanted to push it back, but it was trying to possess her. When she abandoned, left herself, a little whisper word escaped her slightly parted lips. The lips, from the lips, a word came out. And she told that those words below her breath: free, free, free. And the empty stare and the look of fear that had followed her escaped from her eyes. She was no more afraid to accept that feeling. This feeling was of freedom. Her eyes, they means her eyes, they were eager, keen. and bright. Her pulse was beating fast, and the warm blood flowing through her brains was relaxing her body. The thought of attaining freedom after repression is filling her with a warmth. She did not stop to ask if were or were not a monstrous, a huge joy that was holding her. A clear and exalted, favorable outlook helped her to dismiss the suggestion as trivial, the suggestion of being afraid. She knew that whenever she would be reminded of her husband, she would weep again, cry again, and when she saw his kind, tender hands folded in death when the dead body would arrive, the face that had never looked save with love, except with love upon her, she would see his loving face, fixed and grey and dead. That time she would cry again. But she was seeing beyond that hard moment. What was beyond that, children? A long procession, unending, limitless years to come that would belong to her with nobody to pull her back. And she opened and spread her arms out to welcome those years of freedom. There would be no one to live for her during those coming years. She would not have to live for anyone but for herself. There will be no powerful will bending hers in that blind persistence. Persistence means forcing, with which men and women believe they have a right to impose on each other a private will upon a fellow creature. Means after marriage it is understood that men and women, a lady and her husband, a wife and her husband should follow to each other's will. She was free of that. A kind intention or a cruel intention made the act seem no less a crime as she looked upon it in that brief moment of illumination, understanding. When she thought that I would be free, I don't have to fulfill the desires of my husband, whether her intention was kind or cruel, but somewhere inside she was feeling that she was doing a crime by thinking all that. But she had loved her husband sometimes, not always, and very often she had not loved him. What did it matter? What could love, love is an unsolved mystery, count for in face of his possession of self-assertion, means self-confidence, which she suddenly recognized as the strongest impulse, desire of her being. Means she says whether I loved him or did not love him is not the question now. The question now is I am possessing myself. I have self-confidence, and this will give me the desire, the impulse to live. I am free physically and mentally, she kept on whispering to herself. In the meantime, Josephine, her sister, is kneeling outside the closed door of her room, and putting her lips to the keyhole, she is imploring, requesting her sister to please let her in. She is telling Louise, please open the door. I beg you, open the door. You will fall ill. What are you doing inside? For heaven's sake, open the door. Go away. I am not making myself sick. No, how could she make herself sick? Mrs. Mallard was drinking in the elixir, the magical joy of life. and she was drinking that magical joy through the open window. Her imagination, her fancy was running riot, running wild along those days of freedom ahead of her. Any season be, spring, summer, any days, it would be her own. She quickly told a prayer that God, please give me a long life to enjoy. And it was only yesterday when her husband was alive and she had thought with a fear that, oh God, how long this life is going to be. Finally, she arose, at length means finally, and she opened the door to her sister's importunities, repeated requests. There was a feverish victory in her eyes, and she carried herself unwittingly. Wit is intelligence. So, just she was carrying herself like a goddess of victory. She caught her sister's waist and together they came down the stairs. Richard, her husband's friend, was waiting for them at the bottom. There was a noise at the front door. Someone was opening the door with a key. It was Brentley Mallard, the husband of Mrs. Mallard. He was a little travel-stained, tired by travelling, but he was composedly, calmly carrying his gripsack, his bag and umbrella. He had been very far away from the scene of accident, and he did not even know that an accident had taken place. He was fit and fine, alive, returned home. He stood amazed, surprised at Josephine's piercing cry. The sister cried out of happiness at Richard's quick motion to screen him, to hide him. He was not, he did not know what had gone, that they were thinking that he was dead. So why Josephine screamed and why Richard was trying to hide him from the view of his wife, because Richard thought that a dead person again coming to life, his wife Mrs. Mallard is a lady of weak heart. She may not take joy and sorrow so fast and something might happen. So he was trying to hide Mr. Mallard, but he was too late. When the doctors came, they said Mrs. Mallard had died. And how had it died? How had she died? As per the doctors, she had died out of joy. Out of joy that kills. Means she was so happy on seeing her husband that she died. But no children. Mrs. Mallard had a weak heart. And when she heard her husband is not dead and that she is not free from the confines of her marriage as she had thought, her heart gave up and she died of the shock. It is ironic that Mrs. Mallard does not die because the news of her husband's death, but from the realization and from the disappointment that he is alive. When the doctors say that it is a kind of a heart disease, of a joy that kills, the doctors have assumed that her weak heart could not handle the happiness she felt when her husband walked through the door alive. They do not know, or rather the doctors refuse to acknowledge the actual cause for her death. Even if they had known that Mrs. Mallard had died of shock and disappointment from seeing her husband alive, no one would have spoken it aloud, because in those days women had a subdued life. That is why in the story you have seen that when Mrs. Mallard was speaking, when her face was being described, it was said that her facial expression spoke repression. Repression is suppression. So children, we come to the end of the story. I hope you have understood it. Thank you.